That day, Seiya was wearing his manager's uniform. He looked in the mirror and confidently said that anything he wore would look cool. Amagi Brilliant Park was closed that day because Seiya had asked all the employees to clean and organize their booths. Seiya and Isuzu were overseeing their work. Suddenly, Mawful came up asking Seiya to stop all of this and open the park right away. Seiya told Mawful that he had no right to tell him what to do because he wasn't Seiya's superior. Mawful responded, saying that since the park opened 29 years ago, it had never closed without a clear reason. He believed that this was how they earned the trust of their customers. According to Mawful, Seiya was damaging that trust. They continued to argue and attack each other, but suddenly, Isuzu shot her gun into the air. Isuzu told Mawful to control himself. Mawful said that he couldn't just send the guests home, as that would be disrespectful to them. Seiya replied that they needed to fix the park first, and the others could join them later. But Mawful disagreed, belittling Seiya for only having worked there for a few days and not understanding the park's situation. Seiya then decided that he would leave the guest management to Mawful. He didn't care what Mawful would do. His task at that moment was to entertain the guests outside the main gate. Mawful was at a loss because there was nothing outside to do, and Seiya asked, "What exactly can you do?" Mawful, not wanting to look weak, replied that he could do anything and quickly went off. Seiya realized that the place was well maintained and Mawful was doing his job properly. Seiya and Isuzu continued checking other areas. Afterward, Seiya held a meeting stating that there were 3 things to address in the agenda. The first was to extend the park's opening hours. Everyone immediately reacted negatively. Wrench asked how long Seiya intended to extend the hours, especially since the park wasn't equipped to serve guests at night. Seiya understood and said that he would try to extend the closing time from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. At that time, they would install the right lighting, and once it was done, they would remain open until 7 p.m. Mawful agreed. The second agenda item was no weekly holidays, and everyone immediately protested. Seiya called them lazy because they had Fridays off every week. Mirai said that they needed rest, but Seiya insisted that it had to change. Starting tomorrow until July 31st, there would be no holidays, and everyone reluctantly agreed. The third agenda item was to make all park attractions free until July 31st. Of course, everyone disagreed. Ashe, the head of finance, was especially against it, saying that with their current financial situation, doing so would lead the park to fail, especially with the cost of water and electricity. Mawful also said they were professionals and wouldn't perform without pay. Seiya laughed and said that it wasn't performing if Mawful was hitting guests. Mawful apologized for that, but for him, performing without pay was simply impossible. If they tried it, the guests wouldn't want to pay, and that would be the end of them. Seiya didn't want to argue, but he couldn't dispute Mawful's point. He suggested they charge 30 yen for all attractions since the park would celebrate its 30th anniversary next year. Ashe pointed out that charging 30 yen for all attractions was almost like giving it away for free. Seiya explained that at the moment, the number of visitors was more important than making a profit. If they didn't hit their target, everything would come to an end. He ended the meeting shortly after. Macaron and Mawful were talking about the 30 yen discussed during the meeting. Mawful was upset, saying that Seiya seemed to think their actions were worth nothing. Mawful was really frustrated. Macaron reminded him not to get so angry. Macaron pointed out that there was some truth to it because they had no other way to attract many guests, and now is not the time to be selfish. They were about to greet the guests outside the gate, but when they opened the door, a boy named Takeshi kicked Mawful. He was angry because he had wanted to go to Dejima Land, but he chose Amagi Brilliant Park instead, and when he arrived, the park was closed. Takeshi continued to kick Mawful, calling him worthless. Mawful kept apologizing, and Takeshi's mother stopped her son. Mawful thanked her, but she then told him not to come near her son, calling him disgusting and threatening him if anything happened to Takeshi after he touched him. She even called Mawful worthless. Salama was busy recording the scene, and Muse tried to stop her. Mawful immediately pushed Takeshi's mother and warned her not to mess with him. Takeshi's mother was surprised that Mawful dared to speak to her like that. Macaron was really worried about the situation. Takeshi's father then arrived, and Takeshi's mother complained to him about Mawful's behavior. Takeshi's father demanded that Mawful take off his costume because he was going to beat him up. Mawful replied that customers were kings, but even kings had things that shouldn't be said. Mawful gave him a sharp look, which made Takeshi's father furious and ready to attack. Macaron tried to stop him, but it was too late, as Mawful had already thrown a punch. Other kids nearby saw what happened and told their mothers. Their mothers asked them to pretend they hadn't seen anything. Mawful picked up a ball and was about to throw it at Takeshi's mother when Seiya stepped in and stopped him with a kick. Isuzu immediately shot memory-erasing bullets at the Takeshi family. Saya said that what Mawful had done was a crime, but Mawful said that Saya would get used to it eventually. Saya then asked why Mawful had hit a guest, and if word of this spread, it would be the end of them. Apparently, this kind of incident wasn't new. Macaron said that the last time Mawful did something like this was a year ago. Mawful admitted that it was his fault and said he was ready to be fired. Saya knew Mawful was saying this because he truly took responsibility for his job. Saya told Mawful that this time he would forgive him, but if he messed up again, he would be fired. Saya then warned Mawful to remember what he said. Later at the office, Isuzu said she was really worried Saya might fire Mawful. Saya reassured her that Mawful was the main mascot, and since the issue with the memory-erasing bullets was taken care of, everything was fine. Isuzu mentioned that the memory-erasing bullets called Forgotten Realm were really valuable because it took a year to make one bullet, and she only had a few, so they had to be careful. Saya hadn't realized that, so he asked about the painful bullets Isuzu often used. Isuzu explained that those bullets were called pain bringers, and they cost 30 yen for 10 boxes. Saya was surprised that they were so cheap. Isuzu said that some bullets could be used continuously. Saya thanked her, saying that thanks to her he was saved. Isuzu replied that she only gave what she could, even if it meant doing something embarrassing. Saya then said he wanted to try it out right away. Isuzu was surprised that Saya took her words so literally. Saya then asked all the girls to wear swimsuits. Muse commented that the swimsuits were too eye-catching and Salama posted about it on social media. She thought it was harassment to ask everyone to wear something like that. Kobori was actually hoping to see some guys in swimsuits, while Sylphie was excited. Muse removed Sylphie's wings. Saya was surprised that the wings could be taken off, but it turned out that the wings were just part of the fairy's costumes. Latifa felt embarrassed and asked if she had to participate in this activity too. Saya thanked her for showing up. He then asked them to perform a dance to promote Amagi Brilliant Park tickets, repeating the movements until they were perfectly in sync and looked great. Saya mentioned that Latifa's smile seemed stiff, so he asked her to try again with a more cheerful expression. This time, Isuzu didn't smile at all. Toriken was recording their moves. Afterward, Toriken edited the video and he and Saya selected the best moves to make the commercial video. Toriken was surprised that Mawful allowed Saya to film Latifa. Before Toriken could explain why, Mawful suddenly appeared and attacked Saya. Mawful demanded that Saya stop the indecent commercial. As Saya was fending off Mawful's attacks, he told Mawful that he wasn't his superior. Mawful was angry because Saya dared to exploit Latifa like that. He continued hitting Saya, and Saya was able to read each of his punches. They kept fighting until Isuzu fired her usual memory-erasing shots. Isuzu asked Mawful to calm down, but Mawful was still angry because Saya involved Latifa in the commercial, especially since she was so fragile and wearing a costume like that. Saya replied that he had given Latifa the option to refuse. Mawful insisted that Latifa was a good girl and would never turn him down, but Saya was taking advantage of her. Isuzu interrupted and told them to stop arguing because Latifa had already done what she could when she agreed, and she would likely feel confused if she saw the debate about her. Mawful asked that Latifa not be taken around the park anymore because it was a magic field. Saya didn't understand what he meant by magic field, but Mawful refused to explain. Isuzu explained that for certain reasons, it wasn't good for Latifa to leave the magical fields surrounding the park. Saya asked if it was that secretive that Isuzu couldn't tell him. Isuzu said that it couldn't be made public and had nothing to do with the operation of the theme park, so they didn't need to worry about it. Saya asked Toriken to keep editing the commercial video. After the commercial video was posted, it didn't get much attention. Macaron told Mawful that the video didn't get many views, and Mawful told him not to worry about it. According to Mawful, it wasn't the time to use swimsuits to attract customers. Saya asked Isuzu how many guests visited that day. Isuzu said there were 198 people. The next day, Isuzu told Saya that there had been an increase in views since the commercial was posted. Suddenly, Mawful came in happily, showing a viral video of himself punching Tegshi's father. Mawful said he was famous everywhere, with a strong charisma that captivated people. He teased Saya by asking how many viewers the commercial video had, then bragged that his video had more than 200,000 views. Mawful said the commercial video gained views because it was linked to his video. Saya laughed and pointed out that the uploader's name was Aze, which, when reversed, spelled Saya. Toriken explained that Salama had filmed Mawful's video, and he and Saya had edited it. Saya said that if he and Toriken hadn't uploaded it, no one would have noticed, and if they hadn't edited it, Mawful would have just looked like a villain in that scenario. Saya shared how easy it was to turn bad news into a positive and use it to attract customers. Isuzu was surprised that so few people had seen the commercial video. She wondered if it could really attract visitors. Saya explained that out of all the people who watched the video, maybe only 1% would actually come. Isuzu then asked why he had them make the video in the first place. Saya responded that 1,001 guests were better than 1,000, and he would do whatever it took to get even one more visitor. Mawful then left because the guests were already waiting for him, and as usual, he entertained the visitors. Saya and Isuzu went to Okuro, the head of security, to ask about the guest numbers for the day. Okuro reported that the number had risen to 223. Saya was optimistic, knowing that the number was slowly increasing. Okuro showed them how excited and happy Mawful looked, especially seeing him so close to the kids. Saya smiled and said that Mawful was supposed to be like that. Isuzu and the others were having a party at a bar, and Isuzu said that Saya had told her to organize a morale-boosting party, one brought on by Mawful. Isuzu wondered why it was only the four of them there, even though they had invited others, but no one else had come. Tyranny remarked that tying people together by drinking together felt too old-fashioned for that time. They all toasted. They talk about Mawful's endless fame, and both Tyranny and Makaram knew that Mawful was doing it for Latifa, because Latifa reminded him of his younger sister. Mawful then punched them, saying there was no way an uncle wouldn't care about his niece. The three of them started fighting, and as usual, Isuzu immediately shot them to stop the argument. They then joked that Isuzu should be more of a feminist, but Isuzu didn't care about their opinions on women. Mawful guessed that Isuzu was in a bad mood and asked if something had happened with Saya. Isuzu asked why Mawful was bringing up Saya. Mawful said that he often saw Isuzu with Saya, and she looked upset all day. Tyranny and Makaran were curious and asked her to tell them about Saya. Isuzu insisted that there was nothing going on with Saya. Tyranny even knew that Isuzu had stayed over at Saya's house before. They started discussing it, and not long after, Isuzu shot them again. Suddenly, Wannabe came in with urgent news about Latifa. There were only 80 days left, and they still needed 249,683 more visitors to reach their target. That day, Saya and Isuzu immediately went to visit Latifa in her room upon hearing the news that she had fainted. Latifa assured them that she was fine and said they were worrying too much about her. While in the elevator, Isuzu mentioned that Latifa was not a strong person. Saya admitted his mistake of making Latifa go outside wearing a swimsuit. However, Mawful said it was not entirely Saya's fault. Isuzu noted that this kind of thing happened frequently. That day, as usual, Makaram, Tyranny, and Mawful were entertaining the visitors. They were doing it with great enthusiasm. Saya and Isuzu observed them from a distance. Saya was happy to see them working hard, but Isuzu pointed out that not everyone was as energetic. Wannabe, for instance, looked sleepy during his performance. Saya then asked Isuzu about the number of visitors. Isuzu reported that attendance was increasing thanks to the 30M promotion. Suddenly, a group of schoolchildren swarmed Mawful and the others. Isuzu mentioned that handling crowds during school holidays was another challenge in itself. Saya suggested that they help Mawful and his team, but Isuzu remained silent. This made Saya ask if she couldn't entertain some guests herself. Isuzu admitted that she could do it, so she immediately greeted the children and asked if there was a specific place they wanted to visit. However, the kids unexpectedly swarmed Isuzu aggressively. Saya and Isuzu continued making rounds that day. First, they had to visit the sales department to discuss a new guide map layout. They met with Toriken and asked if he had finished the design. Toriken presented 5 designs, but Saya told him to scrap all of them. Toriken was shocked, but Isuzu reminded them that they had a week to refine everything. Saya demonstrated how to add images and decorate the text. Toriken was amazed by Saya's work, and Saya instructed him to finalize the improved version. Next, Saya and Isuzu went to the food supply warehouse. There they met Niku, who was in charge of food management. He immediately showed them the dwindling food supplies, warning that at this rate they might run out of stock by next week. On top of that, their current supplier couldn't handle additional orders. Isuzu told Niku to find a new supplier. Suddenly, Saya called the supply company to place an order, then handed the phone to Niku, instructing him to list everything they needed. Saya and Isuzu then hurried to the finance department. As she informed them that some expenses had been recorded recently, specifically for costume repairs. Saya told Ashie to proceed with the plan as the repairs were absolutely necessary. Next, they went to check on the water pump system. Wrench reported that one of the pumps was damaged. Just as Isuzu was about to call an external mechanic, Saya stopped her, saying they didn't have the budget for it. Instead, Saya suggested using another pump. Isuzu pointed out that this could be risky in an emergency, but Saya insisted on using what was still functioning for now. Wrench followed Saya's instructions. After that, Saya and Isuzu inspected the merchandise section. Saya instructed Mirchan to relocate some of the goods to an empty display area. Then they checked the security equipment. Most of it was no longer functioning, but with a single tap, Seiya managed to get it working again. Seiya even demonstrated cooking techniques in the kitchen. Finally, he told Isuzu to get rid of a magazine that was affecting Wanapi's morale. Wanapi had been feeling down after reading news about his idol being caught spending the night at a man's house. After going around to several locations, Seiya's next task was to review some documents and attend a meeting to discuss attraction renovations. Isuzu told him that he needed to have a meeting with Mawful, Terumi, and Makaram. Seiya asked Isuzu to handle it instead because he was already exhausted that day and had no energy to argue with that troublesome trio. He also found the documents more interesting. Isuzu understood, but her response seemed displeased. Seiya couldn't help but wonder what was wrong with her. Suddenly, the fairies came into Seiya's office, hoping that you would listen to them. However, Seiya told them that he was busy working on documents at the moment and asked why they couldn't just talk to Isuzu. Salaman explained that they couldn't bring this issue to Isuzu, which was why they had come to him instead. Muse added that they wanted to hear it directly from Seiya. With a firm tone, Seiya urged them to speak up. His sharp tone scared Muse and Kobori, making them hesitate. Noticing this, Seiya softened his voice. Muse was unsure how to explain the situation, so she decided to just show Seiya instead. The fairies took Seiya to witness Isuzu's behavior firsthand. Mawful showed his broken water gun to Isuzu and asked for a new one, but she told him to deal with it himself. When Mawful protested, she immediately threatened him with her musket. Makaram then presented his broken musical instrument and requested a replacement, but Isuzu simply told him to use another instrument. Frustrated, Makaram argued that if they continued like this, guests would leave. Isuzu dismissed his concerns and suggested that he chase after the guests with all his might. She even jokingly offered Makaram memory-erasing bullets for the customers. Terumi, on the other hand, had mistakenly picked up the wrong item and got shot by Isuzu before he could even explain. He had actually wanted to show her a broken flower pot and ask for repairs. However, Isuzu flatly refused and told him to take care of it himself. When Terumi objected, she once again pointed her musket at him without hesitation. The fairies then explained to Seiya that this was exactly how Isuzu behaved. It was extremely difficult to ask her for anything. Suddenly, Isuzu appeared, startling the fairies. They quickly made an excuse, saying they were just passing by. Isuzu stated that she was willing to listen to their complaints but asked that they not disturb Seiya. Seiya then pulled Isuzu aside to have a private conversation. He scolded her, reminding her that he had told her to handle things gently. Isuzu, however, insisted that she had done just that. Seiya pointed out that all she had done was threaten him with her musket, just like she had done when she first made him work at the park. He urged her to try compromising and to stop using intimidation. He also told her not to boss them around as she pleased. Isuzu countered that Seiya did the same thing, giving orders however he wanted. Seiya admitted to it, but he argued that at least he had managed to organize them properly. He then guessed that Isuzu had been running the park in this manner for the past year. Frustrated, Isuzu questioned what that had to do with Seiya. He reminded her that she was his secretary and that he didn't want her hindering him in such a way. Feeling insulted, Isuzu refused to be seen as a burden by Seiya. She slammed her hand against the wall and demanded to know what he wanted her to do. Holding back her tears, she quickly left the room.